Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our weekly legislative town hall. We are so happy to have you here with us today. My name is Michelle Mortensen. I am the communications director for the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus, and we are so excited to share information with you each and every week about what's happening in the legislature to bring you more transparency and to keep you informed. And as always, we have Assemblyman Gregory Hafen with us. Of course, he is the Assembly Minority Leader as well. And he is always here to give us great information about what is happening in the legislature. And I got to say, this week has been a very good week for Assemblyman Hafen and a very, very good week for election reform because he has a bill and it's getting a lot of talk. Isn't that right, Greg?
Yep. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us. Super excited to let you know that my Assembly Bill number 148 had an amazing hearing, went great. And that bill is in relation to sample ballots and mail ballots. And simply put, we said mail ballots need some reform. And so we're going to start with this one piece that says sample ballots have to come out before mail ballots. Period. Amen. No more of this. The mail ballot comes out in September. The sample ballot comes out 2 weeks before the election. No more. We're putting date certain when the mail ballots have to go out, limiting them to the month of October. We're limiting it to the middle of October. And then the sample ballots have to come out right before that. I don't know about you guys, but I received a lot of text messages, phone calls, tons of confusion. People were like, I just got this in the mail. I don't know what this is. I thought it was my sample ballot. I threw it away. So this is a big, big step in the right direction in cleaning up the mail ballots. Don't get me wrong. There's still more to go. Ken Gray, Rich DeLong, they're carrying a bill to end the counting of the ballots on election day, not 4 days later. Still working with those guys to try to get them a hearing for that one. I'm cleaning up the front end. They're working on the back end. But I even had the speaker co-sponsor and present the bill with me because everybody is in support of this. It's not too often that you can get the Democrats to agree that they made a mistake in the mail ballots and wanting to fix it, but they're at the table with us saying we need to fix this. We agree it's a problem. So super excited. It's just a hearing. We still got a long ways to go. We still got to get a work session, floor vote, get it over to the Senate, and then start the whole process over. And I know the governor will sign it because I talked to him this morning at breakfast about it, and he was very happy to hear that we're getting some good stuff done.
Absolutely. It's a real victory. And so many media outlets have covered it over the past couple of days as well, just because it's so unique to have such bipartisan support for an election reform bill. It means things are changing slowly but surely. Things are changing. All right, we've got our first question from Michael Ryan, who has a question about improving public safety. And his question is in regards mainly to Senate bills as opposed to Assembly bills. Senate Bill 127, Senate Bill 131, and Senate Bill 223. All three are Kerry Buck's bills. He says he's been emailing Senate majority leadership, i.e., the Democrats, to get these bills to have hearings, but so far, no hearings. He wants to know, is there anything that can be done if constituents have conservative bills they really want to have heard, but it doesn't seem like that's in the cards at the moment? Can anything be done?
Well, Michael, great question. And there are a couple things that can be done. One, what you're doing, keep contacting leadership, but also reach out to the committee chair. I'm just pulling up Senate Bill 223 right now as we speak. I normally don't look at the Senate bills until they come over to the Assembly, but it's in Senate Judiciary. So Senator Melanie Scheibel is the chairperson over there. Email her also. Try to get a hearing. But just kind of looking at the bills and the language, I did want to bring to your attention that on the Assembly side, we have some similar bills. One of them is actually got a hearing on Friday. It's Ken Gray's bill, Assembly Bill 151. Be heard in Judiciary 8 a.m. on Friday. Very similar to what you're looking at in those three bills. actually looked at 151 yesterday and told Ken, "Hey Ken, this looks like a great bill, buddy. I'm happy you're getting a hearing. Hopefully, we'll be able to do some stuff here." And Ken, just for everybody else that's out there, Ken Gray's bill is to increase the penalty for basically child sex offenders, increase it to a tier two. Michelle, is that correct?
Tier two,
Um,
yes.
and so, I'm very happy that he's moving that forward, and we'll get some of that stuff done, Michael. Um, don't know where it's at with Kerry on the Senate side because I mainly focus on the Assembly side, but reach out to the Judiciary Committee members and the chair, voice your support, call in 8 a.m. to Judiciary, listen to the hearings, provide support testimony. All of it helps.
Absolutely. All of it helps. Another big bill that was presented this week is one that Melissa Hardy presented, and we actually have a question about it right now. It's from Fred. He said there was a horrific case of animal abuse in the South, meaning Las Vegas, that led to the introduction of AB 381, Reba's Law by Melissa Hardy. Are Republicans unified in support of this animal cruelty bill?
Oh, absolutely. We support what Melissa's doing. I actually had a friend the same day that this hearing was going on, was in court helping a family member with some other issue. And the case before was very similar to Reba's. And so they were like, I cannot believe that the judge, couldn't do anything about this. The judge was upset. The judge wanted the more tools in the toolbox. So I'm excited for Melissa. She had a great presentation, and looks like that bill will most likely move forward and get a work session and then get to the floor. So yeah, we absolutely support what Melissa's doing. And again, we're seeing judges that are frustrated that they don't have the tools that they need in order to prosecute these individuals at this time.
Yeah, if you remember as well, Steve Wolfson, the DA, specifically asked back in July when this crime happened for the legislature to come together in a bipartisan way to change the laws there. That couple was indicted in December. And I don't believe much more has happened since that indictment, but there is a lot of interest in this particular bill. All right, we have another question. And the only reason I'm going to be able to help with this one is because you and I emailed about it earlier. It's from Laura asking, did you get my email on the proposed bill I sent you? And I remember that's that email that you sent, and you were like, is that Jill Dickman's bill?
Yes.
That's
So
what she's asking about.
thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. We were working on it. Didn't know you were going to be on here tonight, but perfect segue into it. I believe Jill Dickman has a bill that addresses most of that, if not all of it. Great ideas. I sent it over to my policy staff. They were looking into it. Michelle, did they ever get back to us on whether or not all of it was included in Jill's bill or no?
So no, I don't believe we have an
Okay.
official answer if all of that was in Jill's bill or not. From my memory of Jill's bill, everything that Laura gave you was not necessarily all in Jill's bill, but Jill's
Okay.
bill was kind of an all encompassing election reform bill, which kind
Right.
of took what Ken's doing, what you're doing, and it kind of put it all in one. And that probably leads to a great question that will help people understand. I think some people have asked, well, why does Greg have so many election reform bills? Why does Ken have so many? I mean, great, but why isn't there just one big omnibus bill? So maybe explain that to folks too.
Yeah. So I think, as we all know, election integrity, voter ID has become hyper partisan up here. 73% of the Nevada population want it, right? But it has become extremely partisan and very difficult to even talk to the other side about. However, there are things like Assembly Bill 148 that I presented this week that we all agree need to be fixed. And so we're really working hard to take each section, try to address it one at a time. The example I always give Michelle is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so we're taking that approach. We're biting off where we can to keep ticking back. But of course, we always have Jill Dickman's bill out there that says, nope, we're going to repeal it. We're going to do all the things we need to do all at once. In the event that the stars line up and we're able to get some great things done, Uh, but in the meantime, what we're doing and our strategy is we're doing one bite at a time, and eventually we'll eat that elephant and we'll get um, all of our election integrity through. Whether it's at the ballot with the voter ID or if whether or not I'll actually get a hearing on it. Keep asking for it. Erica Mosca, Chair Mosca, if you're listening out there, still would love a hearing. I'm available tomorrow, the next day, any day you want to schedule it at any time. I will make myself available.
Sorry, had a little technical difficulty here with the switching. Chelsea just popped on and she just is saying hello and saying half the town is at the circus. Is there a circus going on in Pahrump?
I,
Or
I
are
don't
you
know,
talking
Chelsea.
about a
Is it?
political circus?
Yeah, Chelsea. Is there a literal circus at home, or are you referring to the circus that's going on up here? I miss being home. Thanks, Chelsea, for tuning in. If there is a circus in town, awesome. If you're referring to the one up here, you should have sat through the Health and Human Service Committee billing hearing today. We had a bill from Dr. Ornlicker that would cap basically socialized medicine, and it would just, we know that's not going to work, and so it was kind of a circus. But we actually had a really good debate. I got to give the chair, Tracy Brown May, credit. She ran a great hearing. She allowed all of us to ask really tough questions. Some of them Dr. Ornlicker was able to answer. Some of them he's going to get back to us. Um, but I do appreciate that we are able to have the debate and the conversation on tough issues where we are split on them. And I look forward to more of those. Hopefully, though, more of my bills that some of the Democrats don't like, but I'll take what I can get when I can get it.
Okay, let's talk about another one of your bills. This is over on Instagram. So if the viewers at home don't know, not only are we on multiple Facebook pages, YouTube, StreamYard, we're also on Instagram. And we finally have the Instagram audience participating. And so I'm excited about that. Their question is, we're excited for AB 163. That's your bill. The Nevada Counseling Compact. With all of the interstate compact bills, is there any consensus about how all of them will fare?
So, I'm going to go back to my approach for the session. Um, there is a bill, and I think it's Senator Stone that has it, but don't quote me on that. That basically would say we're going to allow all the boards to enter into all the various compacts, get reciprocity for every industry. That hasn't passed in previous session, and so right now we're looking at one bite of the elephant at a time, and that's what 163 is. I had a really good hearing on it. Had some good input, good feedback during the committee, and we actually had over 100 individuals either support testimony, write in, sign it wasn't a petition, but sign a letter saying that we are, counselors and medical professionals and support this. Um, there are a number of other reciprocity interstate compact bills out there. The chair of that committee has occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. I believe there's a dental hygienist one that hasn't dropped yet. Um, and I think there's probably going to be a couple more. But I know that as a legislative body, we've kind of made that a priority this session, that we know in the medical field we are lacking in just about every category. And so we have really tried to hone in on getting the reciprocity, cutting the red tape, and allowing people to move to Nevada. Interesting enough, if you go onto Nellis and you look at the letters of support, I actually had the Secretary of the Defense Department at the federal government level write a letter of support for my bill, and kind of surprised me that it caught the attention of the federal government like that. But they were supportive of it because they have so many military families that go from state to state, base to base, and they're not able to. The spouse is not able to work in their profession because we don't have the reciprocity. And I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. And so when they wrote that letter, I was like, wow, this is awesome. We definitely need to do this. And so I think that there's a lot of good hope. There's a lot of momentum to get a bunch of them across the finish line. Not just mine, but the ones that the Democrats are bringing, the ones that are coming from committees. I think there's a social worker one also that's being introduced from one of the behavioral health boards. So a lot of positive movement on those, I think, and I think they will. I think they'll get across the finish line this session.
All right, very good. We have another Instagram question. With the success of bipartisanship with your bill, AB 148, this is from Manny, by the way. Manny asks, are you willing to support Sandra Hattagay's bill, AB 105? Now, forgive me, I don't know what AB 105 is. I can just tell you it's Sandra's bill, so we might need to give you a hot second to look that one up. Just so the folks at home know, we try to do a really good job of memorizing all these numbers, but there are hundreds of thousands of Assembly bills and Senate bills, so sometimes it's hard to remember those numbers. But we've got a lot of questions on the StreamYard chat as well that we're going to get to in a hot second. All right, Greg, did I give you a second there?
Yeah, and so I looked that one up. That bill was I voted against the bill. Same language last session. The governor vetoed that bill. And well, I will say this bill is related to firearms. Um, we do have some really good firearm bills that are coming from the Republicans. PK O'Neill, Jill Dickman are sponsoring a bill that addresses. The Democrats passed a prohibition where you can't give your firearm to a neighbor or a friend, even if you're having a mental health crisis. PK and Joe Dickman are working on a bill that would say you could go to your firearm dealer, the gun store, and they can hold your guns. If you're having a mental health crisis and you don't think that you should have firearms in your house, or maybe it's a family member that's having the crisis, and they will legally be allowed to hold the firearm without being held liable. Really good bill. I think it's something that we absolutely should be doing. And then Danielle Gallant has another one. Hers is Assembly Bill 181, and hers would allow you to, have your neighbor hold your firearm or a close personal friend. We see it a lot in the veteran community. They deal and struggle with PTSD. And a lot of times they don't want to have the stigmatism with them, right? But they are willing to go to one of their other veteran friends and say, "Hey, I'm struggling right now. Will you help me out? Will you just hold my firearm for me? It's just a temporary thing, but I just would rather you hold on to this while I'm going through this." And so I actually was talking to the chair of judiciary yesterday about Assemblywoman Gallant's bill, trying to get her a hearing for it, and actually offered to go help co-present it with Danielle, because I do think it's a really, really good bill, and something that I think was overlooked when the laws were passed, that banned people from being able to give their firearms to a neighbor. And so, one of the unintended consequences that I think we can come back and fix, and that I absolutely support both PK O'Neill and Jill Dickman's bill and Danielle Gallant's. Hence the reason I volunteered to come help present the bill.
Absolutely. All right, we've got another question. We've got quite a few questions. So if everyone can give us a little patience, we're going to try to get to all of them over the hour. But this one comes from William. He says, regarding veterans, could research be done on making veteran license plates issued to any and all honorably discharged veterans, regardless of any disability rating? Honor all veterans with plates promoting their proud service to the country.
Long question. Good to see you. We're working on some of that, Bill. I've got a bill that was just introduced, and let me see if I have the number here. Yes, we do. We have the number. So it's Assembly Bill 409. And that bill is going to do a couple of things. So last session, you'll remember we did the Purple Heart license plate bill that allowed Purple Heart veterans and a bunch of the decorated license plates to be able to be personalized. We missed two of the decorated plates So we're bringing it back. We're going to add those decorated plates so those can be personalized. Um, and the other thing, this was brought up to
I don't know how that happened.
I don't either. It was awesome. We got balloons going. So I'm assuming that Bill liked it. Um, the other part of that bill is the DMV pointed out to me that we have every veteran license or every branch of the military veteran license plate in the state of Nevada except for one, and that is Space Force. And so they asked me if I would include that in my bill and bring forward the ability for our Space Force veterans to get a license plate so they can proudly display their service in our armed forces. And I'm 110% behind it. I've actually got three Democrat co-sponsors. One of them is Assemblywoman Tracy Brown May. Her niece is actually in the Space Force, and so she's super excited that the bill got presented and that we're moving forward with it. She was a co-sponsor on the personalized plate with me last time. Assemblywoman Torres Fawcett, as well as Assemblyman Ruben De Silva. Ruben, for those that don't know, is a Purple Heart veteran, and he was a co-sponsor of the bill last session. So I'm happy to have him on the bill with us again. And we didn't run around and get everybody's signature, but we think that we'll have a lot of support to move that forward. And so we're working on a bill, Assembly Bill 409. Go check it out. Give me any feedback that you got. Let me know if I missed anything else because I don't want to miss anything else this time. Want to get it all right and fixed.
Let me ask you a follow-up that Manny kind of it's kind of a comment, but I thought you could address it too. Manny says those veteran plates are like $80. And yes, I need to get my disabled vet ones. Are they expensive? And didn't you have something in the works? And I could be making things up back in the 23 session to lower the cost. Did I make that up?
So I wasn't aware that they were $80. I thought normally they were like 30 or $40. We can definitely look into that. And but what we did do is with the decorated license plates, we gave the ability for them to get free parking. And this came from a Purple Heart veteran. As everybody knows, Purple Heart veterans are disabled veterans, are considered disabled veterans. They've um, been hurt in war in some way, shape, or form. And I actually have a number of really good friends that are Purple Heart veterans. And so, if previously, before we passed the law last session, disabled veterans with a disabled veteran license plate could get free parking at all of your state and local facilities. And so, we just says, you know what, we want to extend this benefit to all of our decorated veterans, whether it's the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, the Gold Star family, et cetera. And so we did do that. So if you go park at the airport and you have your license plate, they're supposed to give you free parking. Sometimes the teller doesn't know. You got to just follow up with them. But parking at the airport's not cheap. I just did it up here in Reno last week, and it was $108. And I was like, "Oh, ouch, that's pretty rough." So I hope that makes up a little bit of the difference for the cost of the license plate when you do have to park at the airport or at a what do they call those things? The meters on the street. I try not to park at any of those because I hate paying for parking. So very happy to help our decorated veterans not have to do that. So again, little something that we tried to do last session. It did take till I think it was December that we finally got the director of DMV to sign off on it that they could go ahead and start doing the free parking. But it has been implemented right before we got up here for the legislative session. So hopefully you're able to take care of and take advantage of it to all our veterans out there, our decorated veterans, and thank you guys all for your service.
All right, great. We've got a question from Michael. I do believe this is about maybe one of Bert's bills, but I'm not 100% sure. AB 104, water rights buyback. What's your opinion and how could this affect Basin 162? That's for Michael.
Um, Michael, I didn't catch the last name there, but
Bender.
the anytime I see a water right bill, um, It's a big red flag for me. Nevada water law has been on the books for over 100 years now, and it's worked fairly well for us over the years. We've had a couple of tweaks, some that I have not liked in the past. There's been a few that I did like. Um, but I just pulled this bill up. I haven't had a chance to dive into it yet. It is a committee bill coming from the Committee Natural Resources. And I think that when I did have a brief conversation about this, it's a voluntary program, and there was no money necessarily put into it. Um, and it just set up the structure. Um, some of the concerns what are obviously that um, it really is only going to address paper water rights, and everybody's like, well, we really need to address the real water rights, right? The actual wet water that's being handled. And so I know that that's some of the conversation that's been going on. Just trying to look to see what kind of um, notes were in here. It looks like Lisa Cole's been all over this bill. And then my policy guys have been doing a little bit deeper dive into it also. Um, but yeah, I don't have a great answer for you yet. I don't sit on it. It does talk about some of the stuff in Las Vegas with turf removal. And there's still a lot of questions, it looks like, from our members on how that would actually how that'll all work. So it's a work in progress right now, but it is a committee bill. It's not Bert's bill. Michelle,
Okay.
don't throw
Natural
Bert. Don't
resources, Bert, kind of always go together in my head.
Bert serves on natural resources, so it's probably where you got that from. Hope that
Yeah.
helps, Michael.
All right, Chelsea's got a question. It's with a federal flair. Since the federal education is going away, she's talking about the Department of Education. Are we discussing everything I sent up as a state? We need to revamp special education so badly. We do not have the support needed, and it is far different from how we help kids in the clinical world. I gave you guys everything I had. I'm hoping you know what she's referring to.
Yeah, and I thank you, Chelsea. Chelsea, for those that don't know, is a school board trustee in Nye County and had a lot of really good suggestions that she sent over to myself and the governor's office. I know the governor's office, their bills keep getting delayed. And what I will say, Chelsea, is his bills are supposed to come out. They're supposed to come out last week, then this week. I'm hoping that by next week they will. Um, and I'm hoping that a lot of the stuff, Chelsea, that you put in there is going to be in the governor's bill. Um, and while I've got your attention, can you do me a favor, Chelsea, and actually send that information to Alexis Hansen and Melissa Hardy? They're the two leads that are overseeing the education committee on our side. CC me on it just to make sure that I know it got to them, just so they know that it's out there, so they can kind of watch and see, you know, how much of this is in the governor's bill versus how much of it is in another bill or needs to be addressed and added in. So we're still waiting. Again, I hope by next Monday, um, or yeah, I'm hoping by next week that we will have something on what the governor's bill is going to entail.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Fred's got an interesting question. Has anyone at the legislature or LCB proposed a suffix or prefix to legislative bills so that someone knows which session they were passed?
Fred, that's a great question. No, I don't know that anybody's ever talked about that. Um, I'm writing it down because I like it. It would be helpful because people will come up to me and be like, "Your bill AB 148," and I'm like, "Which session?" I've been through four special sessions and four regular sessions, five special sessions now. It is very difficult to keep track of which bills from which year. Obviously, if we just put AB 148 dash 2025, you know, everybody would know what it is. I don't know if I would be concerned that there'd be a fee associated with it for adjusting all of our computer systems, but I think that's a worthy conversation to have. and I wrote it down. Michelle, make sure I follow up on that. Or actually, I know Tracy's watching.
She's
Thank
got
you,
the list.
Tracy, because I know you're writing that down, so we can start looking into that next week, um, or later this week, because I do like that idea, Fred. It's a good one.
All right, Michael's got a question for us. I'm very concerned about AB 306. It may increase the opportunity for stuffing the ballot box with mail in ballots and ballot harvesting. It very well may make election fraud easier. He'd like to know your thoughts on that one. Do you know about that one?
Yeah, so that is the speaker's bill, that would require them to put mail ballot drop boxes throughout um, Clark County and Washoe County. And so, Michelle, I'm going to ask you if you could just make me a meme of a dumpster fire, but label the dumpster fire mail ballot box, and that'll pretty much sum up how I feel about it. Um, we've actually probably shouldn't joke about this. Wasn't it Pennsylvania that literally had somebody lighting those on fire? It's a real problem when you have those boxes just sitting out there 24 hours a day. I believe it was Pennsylvania where we actually did see people going out and setting them on fire. I think it's a bad idea. It sets up potential for theft or vandalism, like we saw in other states. And so I don't really like the idea. I always tell people, if you're going to use your mail ballot, drop it off at the clerks or drop it off at the election polling sites. Um, I dared a tar from the ACLU to mail himself $100 bill and see if it came back to him. And he never did it. He didn't trust the post office that much to mail himself $100 bill. And so, if you're listening to Tar, try it again next year. But no, it just I encourage you, if you're going to use your mail ballot, either drop it off in person at the voting polls or at the clerk's office. Um, that way, that your vote was delivered. And then I even tell people, go online and check to make sure that your signature was verified, it matched what they had on the record, and that your vote counted, because it's so important that every single vote is counted, especially yours. Um, and that it just only counted once. So you want to make sure that you know yours wasn't counted, and then your mail showed up. So
Very
check
true.
the
Very true.
box and recheck everything.
All right. Question from Alex. School behavior is still out of control. It's been going on for 25 years. It's gotten worse. We had a death out of Jonathan Lewis, jumped by a gang at Rancho High School. Where are the laws being proposed where we can try to hold parents raising troubled kids accountable? The Democrats have to get confronted about this insanity. And I know school violence is a big issue, particularly in Clark County and potentially in Nye as well, maybe all counties. We've just seen a real increase in school violence. I guess the first question is, do we even have any that you're aware of bills addressing school violence? I believe we did have a few last session. And then what do you think about that separate angle about making parents somewhat accountable?
Yeah. So we did have a couple bills last session to address exactly this. The Under former Governor Sisolak, um, the Democrats had banned um, suspensions, banned expulsions from taking place. And so last session, after the killing of Jonathan Lewis, we did pass a bill that put expulsions and suspensions back in place. That just went into effect. Sadly, it was after the killing of Jonathan Lewis, um, and it wasn't soon enough, because had those kids been disciplined at an earlier age, um, and been suspended or expelled, if they were expelled, they wouldn't even been there to jump. Poor Jonathan. And so it's sad that we weren't able to prevent that from happening, but we did address it last session, and we did put a lot of tools back into the schools. And I know as soon as that bill went into effect, the Nye County School District actually suspended a number of kids immediately, effective from the date of that going into effect. And so I know they're working. I know the school district is really starting to use that again. Um, but yeah, it is a very sad case that sadly we as a legislative body changed the laws that we should have never changed. That could have prevented that.
That is one of the biggest tragedies and travesties of some previous sessions. Some things that we passed with unintended consequences that have cost so dearly. Um, on a related note of something that has cost us dearly, but different with Medicaid, Chelsea asks, we need better Medicaid reimbursements. That's why no one wants to stay in Nevada as a provider. I know that's an important issue to me in my years at Channel 8. It was so devastating to know that there were doctors who could perform surgeries for Medicaid patients, but they would explain to me that they're getting paid pennies on the dollar for these surgeries. It's not even worth it for the nurses and the staff to be there to do it. There's so much going on with Medicaid. We've talked a lot about fraud. We've talked a lot about reform. There's, of course, lots of talks about cuts and will there be cuts? Won't there be cuts? But we haven't had great conversations this session yet about reimbursements. Is that something that's even on the table?
So great question. Um, I'm gonna go back again to last session. Something that we did. There was on the books for many years what they call a provider fee, and it basically says that various medical professions can adopt a provider fee, and in essence, what it would do, um, and I can't remember which one had already implemented it, but last session, the hospitals came to us and says, "Look, we need more Medicaid reimbursement. We want to utilize this provider fee that's on the books and been there for years, but we need reassurances that you, as a legislative body, won't take away our general fund dollars if we do that." And so um, we agreed. I mean, I think it was unanimous coming out of both houses that look, if the hospitals or any other medical group wants to implement the provider fee, we as a legislative body will not strip away the general fund dollars. And so what that does is it allows for the hospitals to pool their funds together. Um, it goes into the state pot for Medicaid, and then we get about a 3-to-1 return from the federal government, and then that goes back to the Medicaid reimbursement rates. Um, we did siphon off. Don't hold me to this, but I want to say it was like $40 million to go directly to behavioral health. Um, but again, we're looking at bringing in, I want to say it's close to $200 million in federal Medicaid dollars to help increase the Medicaid reimbursement, um, which is really good. I mean, it really is going to help the situation that Chelsea was just pointing out. They just implemented the provider fee language for the hospitals and started to collect those funds. I don't think those funds have gone out, so they haven't been able to see the return and the increase just yet. And they might have starting in Q2, which would be next month, but I'm not 100% sure that is the increased reimbursement rates are going out yet. But if they haven't, that's very close.
Wonderful, wonderful. And, there's been a lot of talk on the federal level of what Trump and the Republicans are going to do when it revolves with Medicaid and Medicare and the cuts that may potentially happen. Let's just talk about that for a moment. I know you have a little bit of inside information, in that a lot of those potential cuts are really eliminating the fraud that I mean, unless you live under a rock, there's a lot of Medicaid and Medicare fraud out there, not so much on the necessary resources that people rely on Medicaid day in and day out need. So that is something that you truly believe from the conversations you've had with the White House is going to be protected, correct?
Yeah, so I've had multiple phone calls with the White House and talked to them about, hey, what's going on? There's obviously a lot of concerns in the media, a lot of rhetoric coming from across the aisle, especially at the federal level. And it's very disappointing because my conversations with the White House are Medicaid's not being cut. The President, Trump, Speaker Mike Johnson, and the Senate have all come out and they have said, we're not cutting Medicaid. And if you actually go and look at the budget resolutions, there is nothing in the resolutions that references Medicaid. And so for me, it's super frustrating to hear the rhetoric, and it's the same thing, because they're literally, you can put the videos side by side and they're saying word for word the same thing. Somebody wrote them a script that says, this will scare voters in our direction. And that's not how we should be leading this country. So I've been super disappointed in our federal delegates back in Washington and the rhetoric that they're using. Is President Trump going after fraud? Absolutely, 110%. You go to the Doge website or the Doge Twitter page, you can see all of the fraud and waste and foolish spending that they are cutting. And I've said this since day one. I am super proud that the federal government is finally taking Nevada's lead and going to try to establish a balanced budget. If they get to a balanced budget, it'll be the first time since 2001. That's 24 years without a balanced budget. Nevada has had a balanced budget every single session. And right now we have a rainy day fund of, I believe, $1.2 billion, for the event that, heaven forbid, something were to happen and our economy goes into whatever. We're ready. We're prepared. Not only do we have the rainy day fund, but a lot of our agencies have reserves set aside, um, to help out for various circumstances, whether it's national disaster, economics, what have you. So I personally am very happy to see the federal government finally stepping up to the plate and being more like Nevada.
Absolutely, as we all are. Alex has another question about gas prices. We always love talking about gas prices. And I think it's one a lot of people have, although I'm not sure the solution he's providing is one we can just easily fall into. Has there been any solutions to fixing our gas prices instead of raising gas tax like they proposed, but did not do in the last session? How about we open our own refinery like Utah has? And I think that's the really interesting part of the question. We get most of our gas from California. That's how the pipelines are. Utah's done its own thing. Texas isn't that far away. What's the issue there? Um, are those options, or are those just things we like to talk about and hope are options, but it's not really something that can be a reality?
Um, Great question, Alex. I mean, I almost think you're in the building listening to some of the conversations that are going on, because we are having conversations about that. Obviously, when Phillips 66 decided to pull out of California, we were a little shocked. Phillips 66 was only about 5% of our fuel. So when they decided to pull out of California, we were like, oh no, how much is this? And we found out it's only 5%. The other refineries can absorb that. Um, but we've been looking at alternatives because California continuously passes new regulations, passes new laws, increases, I'm going to call them taxes because that's basically what's happening when they pass all these silly regulations on the fuels and restrictions on what the refineries can do. Um, and so we have been looking at what it is that Nevada can do, whether it's extend a pipeline from Utah and bring some of that more into the state, or maybe we should look at doing our own refinery. Obviously, we'd still have to get the crude oil in somehow, whether it's from Utah, from Texas, or still from California, and then just refine it here. Those conversations are being had on the back channels, with the Department of the Governor's Office of Energy. Um, and so I don't know where that's all going to go, they are conversations that are being had because we are concerned with California and their I'll just be honest, dumb policies that they keep enacting that directly affect us. And so we are working on it. The good news is, I think when I was home last, I saw gasoline at 2.99. I was like, hey, something's working right. Yeah, Michelle's got that look on her face. Michelle, you got to go to Pahrump,
I guess
and
so.
you can find gas at just under $3 a gallon. So, gas prices are coming down. Trump's policies are starting to work. And I think today we just got numbers that inflation's coming down finally. And so good news. And we are starting to see that the Trump policies work. But then to directly answer your question, Alex, we are having those conversations to ensure Nevada's future is not just controlled by California's bad policies.
100%. All right. We just happened to get like a flood of women's and men and women's sports questions. So I'm going to kind of surmise all of them together and then let you go for it. So Linda said, the senators, and she's talking about the US senators, voted for biological men to play in women's sports because they say it should be up to each individual state. So she wants to know about that. And then there was a question about the rally that's happening in Las Vegas with the lieutenant governor. They want to know if there's going to be one in Carson City. I can just answer that real quickly. The Carson City one already happened. And then they also want to know, does the assembly have any bills on protecting women's sports? So ultimately, we want to know, how do you feel about what the Senate, U.S. Senate kind of did? Carolyn Mastow and Rosen, they really did kind of punt with their issues and their answers on that one. And then we can, of course, talk about Bert's bill because that is the one that is doing a lot of unique things to protect women's sports, but we don't know if it's going to get a hearing.
Yeah, great questions. Yes, Bert has a bill. Yes, there was a rally here in Carson City. I was not able to attend it because I was in budget hearings during the rally. Um, in regards to what the Senate did back in DC, I like states' rights. I like that things are left up to the individual states. However, when you look at collegiate sports, it's across state lines. And so there has to be some protections put into place at the federal level to address a lot of those issues. Now, I will say on Bert's bill, it was very, very well thought out. He has men are men, women are women. And then he added that if a program wants to have co-ed sports, they can have co-ed sports, and that would be an opportunity for anyone to participate in. And really kind of was like, look, we don't want men and women's sports, period. We know that. However, we'll have another avenue. If somebody wants to do a co-ed sport, they can. And I don't play any longer, but I used to play softball when I was a little bit younger, and it was co-ed. It was a lot of fun, and so I hope that helps. Bert's bill's not getting a lot of traction up here. He had it last session. Democrats refused to give it a hearing. I've gone to the Democrat leadership and says, "Hey guys, look, he's put in some stuff in here that would allow for co-ed sports as a way of saying, hey, let's try to work together to try to address this." Um, Still haven't really gotten any positive feedback on that. I thought Bert was trying to give an olive branch there. But at the end of the day, we don't want men beating up on women in women's sports. This country's fought too hard for women to have the rights that they have, and we need to protect those.
And it's so interesting because I worked with Bert on this bill quite a bit over the last couple of sessions. So much of what we modeled our language on was based on what Washington State's model is. in having that co-ed sport designation. And as a mom of two daughters, my littlest one, she's 10, she's in cheer. And you might think cheer is pretty much a predominantly female sport, but there are co-ed teams where there are boys. When I was in high school, there were boys on my team. The difference is this: all girls teams need 3, potentially 4 girls to lift one girl up in the air. Whereas men teams with boys on them, you can have one guy lift up one girl, you can have 2 guys lift up one girl. It's not the same. And that's why in the competitions, co-ed competes against co-ed, all girl competes against all girl. It already exists. And I think one of the big problems with this bill, or at least with Democrats, their unwillingness to talk about it, is their unwillingness to acknowledge that the solution already exists and the solution does not alienate anyone. So just so you know, we are working very, very hard on this issue, and it's something that Bert's super passionate about. And we have a lot of hope that we can make some change, but we're on what, day 40-ish something? No, we're past day 40.
And
We're
42.
Yeah, 42. And there's only 120 days to do it all. And I'm not good enough at math. So we'll try to get it done. But thank you
Oh,
for that.
actually, I think there's 82 days left, Michelle. So we're day
Oh,
38 or something,
yeah.
39.
Crazy, crazy.
It's
All right.
moving
Moving
fast.
way too fast. All right. All right, we got 2 questions I want to get to. All right, this question is about any news on the reason for the large increase on homeowners insurance, besides the fact that we have to pay for other states' disasters. That needs to change. That's from Laura. Have you heard anything about that?
No, and we were diving into that during the interim, trying to figure out, how to address some of that. Um, the homeowners insurance, obviously, you see the fires that start in California, and a lot of them come over the hill, especially in northern Nevada. And northern Nevada actually had a lot of fires here recently. Um, so no real good answer for you there, Laura. We started to look at it, but there really was no good solutions that came up in my conversations, at least. And Michelle, have you seen anything more than what we did just to research and just so people know? We were seeing somewhere in some instances a 30% increase in the premiums for homeowners insurance. A lot of it was coming from the fires, um, and other natural disasters that are taking place across the nation. Florida with the hurricanes, and so um, I really don't have a good answer for you, Laura. I'm sorry, and we can continue to look into it, but I kind of ran into a stone wall when we were digging around for it.
What would be interesting too, again, this is my consumer protection mind coming in, and I admit that's probably one of my, pet projects is consumer protection. But I know people who lost their homes in the fires in California, and I'm very frustrated with the fact that, so many insurers were like, well, we're going to drop you because there's a fire risk here. And I wish there was some sort of consumer protection in place to protect people with homeowners insurance so that you can't be denied it. I mean, there's a lot of problems with Obamacare, but the fact that you can't be denied for pre-existing conditions is a great protection for consumer. I wish there was something that we can work on, but I know I don't think there's anything like that in the works. It's so funny. We have so many consumer protection bills in the legislature from Democrats that really don't do anything to protect anyone. They just kind of like screw landlords or things like that. But that's the actual type of consumer protection we as a state, that's what we need.
Well, and you bring up a good point, Michelle, is what happened in California. They brought bills that they to lower the homeowners insurance, and they basically did price fixing. And what happened when they did the price fixing is the insurance companies pulled out. They said, hey, we can't provide the service at that rate in these areas, and therefore we have to pull out. And then these homeowners in California were left with no protection whatsoever, and people lost their homes, and they did not have insurance. And so, um, again, when we looked, there wasn't really good models. Like, you look at California, you go, yeah, I definitely don't want to do what they did and do price fixing, because it messes with the market, and the suppliers of the insurance pulled out. And so, um,
So let me ask
It's
you this then. So you know how AG Ford has that price fixing bill, 44, right? Um, would that bill, I know that bill kind of encompasses everything. It would price fix everything in 5-year increments. Would that also be the case with like home insurance?
Potentially, to me, it's a really bad bill to fix the price of things. We're finally seeing the Trump policies going into effect. We're starting to see prices come down. Inflation is down, um, and the best example I can give is if you tried to buy a vehicle um, 4 years ago, you're paying a premium. You were paying over sticker price, and now you can go into a car dealership and you can get substantial discounts below MSRP. And so, if you lock the rates in, the rates are locked in and the prices are fixed, and they can't adjust for the fact that, hey, car dealers now have enough supply. You could negotiate with them again and get a lower price. They're fixed at that inflated price when there was no supply, and you couldn't get anything, and so they were charging a premium. And so, it's a double-edged sword. You fix the price, but when the market says, "Hey, these things are coming down," they have to stay here, and to be honest, it'll end up just driving business to other states that don't have it, because why would you pay an extra $10,000 for a vehicle when you can go to Utah or Arizona and get it for $10,000 cheaper?
Right. All right. We are really in our last couple of minutes, and we have two questions that I really want to get to. And one of them, it's a long one from Alex. It's multi-part, but it's really about the bureaucracy and red tape of creating a small business. He's basically saying, if he wants to start up a kitchen or a food truck or a mom and pop bar, the regulations are so tough that a person like him can't do it because it costs 200K. So is there any talk about cutting that regulation and whatnot, that bureaucratic red tape to starting a business? And I could have made this up, but I thought there was some sort of bill that was looking at cutting that red tape, but I could be talking about a county bill in Nye County. So I could be getting things confused.
Um, yes, and yes, and yes. How's that sound, Michelle?
Okay.
The answer is so I've submitted a bill. It hasn't dropped yet, to try to lower the licensing fees at the state level. So we're trying to take the licensing fees from, and don't quote me on this because the language, I haven't even looked at the language. They dropped it off this morning. It's like $500. We're trying to lower it to like $100 or $200 to try to reduce the burden of entry. On the Senate side, they have very similar language for small businesses, which I kind of like. The language is, if you qualify for a small business, which I think is less than 50 employees, you could qualify for the cheaper LLC rate. The other thing is on the back end, trying to eliminate some of the fees associated with that at the state level. Now, again, you get into the rules and the regulations, and a lot of the red tape that you're seeing, those are coming from the county level. And so, Michelle, you're probably more up to speed on what Nye County's doing to cut some of that red tape. Um, but that is one of the problems that people are running into, is the local municipalities. Um, they raise their fees, they raise their impact fees. That doesn't have anything to do with me and us up here. We don't control the impact fees. Um, and I can't remember who, but somebody was asking why we raised impact fees, and I had to direct him to his county commissioner, because it was the county commissioner that did that, not, or the county commission that did that, not us up here. And so I wish I had some better news for you on that. But there is another bill out there. There's two other bills out there that, when the county commission decides to increase these fees, or implement a new one, or put in burdensome regulations that are going to have an impact on these businesses, that the businesses will be notified, and not only the businesses, but the chamber of commerce in that area will also be notified and be asked, hey, what is the impact to these regulations, these rules, these increased fees? And so I'm working on that with Senator Dina Neal. to try to address some of that stuff, because we can't tell the counties, don't do this or don't do this or do this. But what we can do is we can say, if before you do it, you have to notify the industry that this is what we're proposing, and get feedback that says this will be the impact to the local businesses. I know it probably doesn't help you when you want to start a new one, but that's where you can get involved with your Chamber of Commerce to make sure that they're involved. They have a seat at the table. You have a seat at the table. You can give the input that you need to give to say, hey, this is becoming too cost burdensome. How can we make it more efficient and streamline the process?
Absolutely. So Jack just texted me and he was like, the balloons. And I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know how the balloons happen, or there was like a thumbs up, or I don't know who's doing it. I don't even know how it's happening, but somebody's did it. I'm like,
I
I
just did.
don't
I
know.
did it. It's when I put my thumb up. It. I don't know. I didn't do it
No,
again.
I don't think you just got the magic. I think the viewers at home do. All right. We are at our very last question. I have I did not even know about this, so I hope you know something about this. Crystal is educating me. Are there any plans to stop adding fluorosilicic acid to our drinking water like Utah is doing? This is what I did not know. I did not know Utah was doing that, and I'm going to assume that's some type of fluoride because I couldn't even pronounce that word right. Do we have anything like that tap? Do you need me to
I
put that back up for you?
Yeah, I don't know what the fluoric acid is. I believe
I
in
don't
parts
either.
of Vegas they were adding fluoride. I don't know if they still are. Um, I know other parts of the state are not doing that. I can speak for myself. I do not do that. Um, I and I definitely don't add whatever acid that is to the water.
It's
Um,
a corrosive, fuming, inorganic acid that's used in water. Oh my God, I've never felt more dumb in my life. Fluoridation, like adding fluoride,
okay.
metalworking, and more. It's also known as a hydrofluorosic acid or sand acid. And it's you added for it's That's a weird product. It's used for water, adding fluoride to the water, hardening cement, wood preservation, metal sterilization, electroplating, animal hide tanning, and glass etching. I mean,
Um, we Crystal, we'll look into that to see if what's going on. I actually met with SNWA earlier today, and I could talk to them about what they're doing. Again, in the rest of the state, and I don't know about Reno, but I can look at and ask kind of a little bit more, like who is doing what and where. But I do know the rural parts of the state are not doing that. I just need to check on Clark County and Washoe County to see exactly what's going on there.
yeah, absolutely. That was a very interesting question. And I'm curious that Utah's doing it, how that came about. So we'll definitely research into that. We don't always have all the answers, my friends, but we are at the end of our hour. And I love to end with good complimentary news. And that is from Claire. And she just said, thank you for answering everyone's questions, which really shows your respect and concern for us fellow Nevadans. Best regards, Claire Desmond. And that was just a lovely sentiment to share. Um, and Michael said this was a great town hall. And Crystal just said, thank you for answering her question. And Alex gave us some claps, and there were balloons and thumbs up. So, I mean, it was a great one overall.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh,
I
Darlene
appreciate it.
Edson's on, and she says, appreciate y'all. She just popped in. So I thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate the feedback, and we'll work on some of these questions, and we'll try to get some more answers. Michelle, we're not doing one next week. Is that correct?
That is correct. We do have a week off, and I apologize for that. I am just unable to help host this next week, and all this little technology that makes screens go this way and that way. It's a one woman job, and it's I'm that woman, so I can't be with you next week. So we're not having
What
one
date?
next week.
What date are we? What day are we going to do the next one again?
Well, let me tell you. So we are going to do it on the 26th. So we're skipping the 19th, and we will be back on the 26th. And we are going to try our darndest to do one every week, even in April and May. But I'm going to do that because things get a little dicey at the end. But the hope is to do this through the very end on Wednesdays, correct? We have another week in April that we won't be doing it because I will be on an airplane. But other than that, we're good to go. And for those of you who do follow on Facebook, any of our pages on Facebook, I should have that link to register for the next one on the 26th out tomorrow or the next day.
Perfect.
I'll do my
Sounds
best.
great. Well, thank you again, everyone. Look forward to seeing you and talking to you on March 26th, 6 p.m. Look for the link when Michelle sends the email and up on our social media sites. Thank you again. Really appreciate everything from everyone.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Have a good one.